Hey you guys, I'm Alex Wardinski from TahoeToWhitney.com, your trail guide for the High Sierras between Lake Tahoe and Mount Whitney. It's January 2nd. Happy New Year. That means it's time to go winter backpacking. And I'm going to head out for a 5-day winter backpacking trip in the High Sierras. I'm going to go from the Lake Tahoe Basin, little circulation at high elevations along the Tahoe Rim. I'm going to exit the basin, go up Round Top Lake, and come back. Okay, so we're going to go through the gear required to keep you warm, dry, comfortable, and safe during a 5-day High Sierra midwinter backpacking trip. You ready? Midwinter conditions bring exquisite beauties to the High Sierras. But along with these beauties comes real dangers. There's an objective danger hazard of cold, avalanche, storms, and so we're going to go through all the things required to get you to see some of the most beautiful conditions that nature has to offer. The first source, and the most important source of all, should be your experience. So I suggest that you don't go midwinter backpacking until you know the place thoroughly in summer, until you know the terrain, until you know the area, until you know the way to get in and out when there's no trails. And if you know a place well, then you can start exploring it as the seasons develop. As fall moves in, winter moves into spring, and as summer moves into fall, you can start exploring your most familiar places in winter conditions. We're going to focus on two different aspects here. The first one is going to be keeping you hiking during the day. Days are incredibly short and they can be incredibly cold. The second one is going to be keeping you warm and comfortable and safe at night. How to get yourself hunkered down with all your gear and protected and comfortable in the conditions. The nights are incredibly long. So in terms of daytime movement, we want to have easy and quick layering that accommodates the shifting temperatures, the shifting snow flurries, the shifting winds. We want to have a good base layer where our base layer does not have to come off. It's not too hot and it's not too cold. It's the Goldilocks theory. We need stuff just right. To make proper midwinter gear selections, we need information. The kind of information we need is weather and route. First, we're going to start with the route because the route's going to determine where we're going to look for weather conditions. And our route's also going to provide us with other pertinent information about selecting our gear. So we're going to, because I'm hiking around South Lake Tahoe, the southeast part of the Lake Tahoe Basin, I've got most of that information on my website. So we're going to utilize the website to get the map, the mileage, the route information, look at our exposure, and then ascertain which weather reporting stations, where we're going to look for our weather history, our current weather conditions, and try to figure out what's going to happen in the next 5 days. That's going to be really vital for making the proper gear selections for the conditions and route we're going to be on. So we'll go to the TahoeToWhitney.com trail guide and we'll look for the pertinent information there. We're now on the TahoeToWhitney.com trail guide homepage, and we're going to look at the left sidebar. And when we look at the left sidebar, we're going to see a series of links that bring us to the guide, to the maps, to the mileages and elevations, permit, resupply form. The guide, maps, miles, and elevations is the pertinent stuff that we want to look at here. And then in the next segment, we'll go down to the weather conditions and look at the weather notes and the North High Sierras weather conditions here. But in this bit, we're going to look at the guide. We're going to find our trailhead, which is the South Upper Truckee Trailhead in Myers. So we'll scroll down, we got Lake Tahoe trailheads here, but we're going to roll down past the Echo Lake Chalet Resupply Place, and we got Echo Summit and South Upper Truckee trailheads to the Carson Gap. That's basically where we're going, but we're going to make a little detour. We've got the South Upper Truckee Trailhead link here, and that'll bring us to the trail guide page. Now, on the trail guide page, we can access across the top bar links. We can access the 7.5-minute map. We can access the miles and elevations. Now, I've already figured out the miles and elevations. This trip works out to 29.5 miles, and it covers between 6,500 feet and 9,400 feet in elevation. So we'll look at the miles and elevations page. And you can see we got each location along the route documented. Now, the route's under snow, but we're roughly going to follow the trail route from my trailhead up to Round Lake for the first night. So we'll go to the map here. Okay. Here's our trailhead here, the Myers Trailhead, and we're roughly going to follow the route up mountain until we reach Round Lake right here. We should spend the first night at 8,000 feet at Round Lake in a protected position. Okay, so now we got the map, we got the miles and elevations, and we're going to be at 8,000 feet. Okay, the second day we're going to go from Round Lake, and we're going to cut from Round Lake here, and we're going to work our way through these mountain tops and hillocks over to Showers Lake. Now, Showers Lake's at 8,400 feet, 8,600 feet, so we'll spend the first two nights at between 8,000 and 8,600 feet. Third night, we're going to traverse along the base of the Tahoe Rim towards the southeast, and we'll traverse along the base, roughly following the trail route, but the trail won't be visible. It'll be under 10, 15 feet of snow. We'll go by the Meats Cabin here, and we'll come up to the Carson Gap. Now, this is where we're going to exit Tahoe Basin at 8,800 feet. We'll be fairly exposed there. Okay, so now we come down to the bottom of this map, and we're going to see the map stops at the Carson Gap, Carson Pass region there. So now we're going to move to the next map down. That's the Carson Pass region map, where at the top of this map it overlaps and continues. So now we're going to see the options that we have for moving from the Carson Gap down to the basin to Highway 88, and then climb up to 9,400 feet at Round Top Lake. And we can see here, Carson Gap. You can see our various routes, which will follow, the routes follow the terrain, and so you're going to essentially follow your terrain. So in your location, find your map, mark your route, figure out your mileage, look at the terrain, determine the exposure and elevation in your campsites. And then we're going to go to the next step and look at weather information for these locations. Okay, so now we're up to Round Top Lake here, and if you click the dots on the map, that'll bring you to the specific trail guide page. And here's our Round Top Lake trail guide page with maps, mileages, information about the location. Now, this is reconnaissance. So what I'm doing is I'm doing some scouting here, and I'm going to determine all the pertinent information I can. So when I make my midwinter gear selections, I get gear that's perfectly tailored for the situation I'm going into, or as close as I can ascertain what a reasonable person can ascertain. Okay, so we'll go back to the map. Now we're at Round Top Lake here, and what we're going to do is we're going to retrace our steps back, get back to Carson Gap. We'll go down from Round Top, we'll go down through the basin of Highway 88, and then we're going to cut back over the Carson Gap again, and now we're going to go to the next map to the north, which is our map we use to get from the trailhead to Round Lake, to Showers Lake. Okay, so now we're up to Carson Gap here again, and now we came in on one side of this triangle. Now we're going to make the hypotenuse of this triangle. So we're going to come through the Carson Gap, and we're essentially going to come straight back down to Round Lake, which is the first place we camp. So we'll camp our first night at the same place we camped our last night, and we'll exit out the same trailhead that we entered 3-4 days before. Okay? Now, I'm ascertaining that it'll take between 4 and 5 days for this trip. Now, probably 4 days if all the conditions are optimal. But there's heavy snow, lots of new snow. It's probably not compressed in, and there may be real difficulty in travel. So I'm throwing in the extra day's food to give me margin of safety. Okay? So we're going back down to the trailhead. We'll exit there. All right, now the next segment we're going to look at. We're going to start looking at the weather for these locations, get the best weather information we can, and then we'll go on to here.